che sono occasioni notevoli da subito, non farsele perlomeno scappare, ha prevalso sulla saggezza e sulla maturità degli atleti più consumati.
Well, a very good morning from Golfo Aranci on the Sardinian coast, and apologies, we've joined you partway through the action here at the men's 10-kilometer race, the final stop of the 2025 World Aquatics Open Water World Cup. I'm Will Rollo alongside Olympian and the voice of the World Cup Series this year, Alice Steering, as the field makes its way through the opening stages of what promises to be a thrilling season final. 71 athletes took to the start, led by France's Marc-Antoine Olivier, who came in today holding the overall lead. But with his teammate Logan Fontaine and Italy's Dario Verani and Andrea Filadelli still chasing, every position will count. Conditions are near perfect, flat water and light wind, which you can see on the screen today, and the pace already looks fierce at the front. Alice, now that we're underway, what do you think the key to success will be over the 10 kilometers today?
Hey, well, always so fantastic to be joining you for these World Cups. And the key to winning, I think, is being fast, as always. That is a requirement for our sport. It is quick, it is hot, and it's tiring, but also have to be very smart, have to be very switched on. There is so much to play for across both the men's and the women's races this weekend in terms of placements in the overall ranking, the sprint lap, the money lap, as we are watching unfold right this second. So I think the requirement for tactics to be really switched on, and there's not going to be any room for error because everybody's gunning for positions this weekend.
And Alice, one of the key things that sort of has led to some of the technical difficulties this morning, a bit of storm, bit of rain overnight. There is some rain predicted for today's race. How do you think that will impact the athletes?
Yes, always an interesting one, unexpected weather, or just not good weather is always a bit of a challenge for athletes, but at the same time it shouldn't affect them. The water still looks quite flat. It's a bit of rain in the air. The most you'll get is a bit of annoyance walking down from the sheltered area where you're all being held and walking down to the pontoon, and you're getting wet, but you're going to get in water and get wet anyway. So it's about staying as dry as possible, staying warm, and then getting in and letting it fly. And we can see an American swimmer up at the front. That's very exciting.
Yeah, I think that looks like Ivan Puskovic leading the way early. We'll get a check on that shortly. Of course, unable to see exactly who was introduced on the start line, and that shot there now has David Bethlehem leading the way. So I guess, Alice, as we look to the field, one of the big omissions after what has been an incredibly big year of open water swimming from today's race is Florian Wellbrock, who absolutely dominated the racing in Singapore.
Yes, he had such a fantastic competition, didn't Yeah, we're not seeing Florian here this weekend, unfortunately. Probably taking some time out after what was such a dominant display at the World Championships, taking home 4 gold medals. A really, really impressive feat that we haven't quite seen before. But I think that has brought something different to this field that we're seeing with the men's. It means that there's less obvious, like, who are we looking to do the leading. And we often see David Bethlehem getting out, getting in front. Olympic bronze medalist in this event from Paris just a year ago. He had a great competition at the World Championships too. So I'm not surprised we're seeing him take that at the front at the moment.
Yeah, it would be very interesting to see how it plays out. Of course, one of the new initiatives that was introduced this year, Alice, the sprint lap, just being on that first lap, $1,000 up for grabs for the first swimmer across the line on the first lap. We saw some fierce competition already this season, both in Setúbal, but most famously in Ibiza earlier this year, where there was almost a bit of drama that concluded lap 1. I mean, that drama mainly sat with the likes of Logan Fontaine. Do you expect much more of the same this morning?
I would think so. You know, you got $1,000 on the line. You're feeling fresh. You're feeling good, and I think especially coming out of the World Championships, you're not sure how much training people have done. You know, everybody kind of always overstates how much training they've done because to admit that you might have taken 2 or 3 weeks off. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. But it's all about letting your competitors know that you're good, you're fighting fit, and you're looking this on. So this money lap, this first lap will be very crucial in terms of setting up the race and setting up the mindsets that your competitors will be going through. So, you know, if you're getting out there, putting on a hot pace, people might be looking around thinking, oh, hang on a second, like, I haven't actually been too prepared for this. This is feeling quite alien at the moment, especially those who have taken longer breaks. So, yeah, it's $1,000. Like, why not go and give it a go?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, ultimately, that will enable a lot of athletes to train with knowing that their bills are paid, which is a big thing, especially as these athletes sort of mature through their career. One of the athletes that I wanted to shout out to start off the show today is the return of the Italian stallion, Domenico Azzarenza. He returns to the water today after going through some shoulder surgery last year, and then also more recently the birth of his first daughter. So Domenico enters the water. I'm sure that $1,000 and that sprint lap will go a long ways for the new family.
Yes, definitely. You know, this is just the excitement that we have with our sport in terms of its growth and its professionalization and the amount of effort which athletes are putting in to go to these World Cups, to travel, to take time away from home. It's really important that they do feel fairly compensated for their efforts. So it's fantastic that we're able to see World Aquatics put on such great prize pools for our athletes.
That's it. So here we are, the first of 6 laps in the men's 10 kilometers. Apologies for the technical difficulties to start the show, but the athletes have taken that in their stride as they make their way out onto this incredible course. Alice, the third year we've been here in Golfo Aranci, and it has produced some incredible racing, most notably back in 2023 where we saw Ollie Clement come back from 1 minute and 32 seconds down. So there was a chase pack that established themselves of 6 swimmers. Ollie Clement chased down 1 minute and 32 seconds, which is absolutely astronomical at this pace. But equally so last year, some great racing. And we're back, and the conditions, whilst a little more testing, certainly turning it on.
Yes, what a performance from Ollie Clement back in 2023. Shame we can't unfortunately potentially get a repeat of it today as he's not competing, but really one of the like standout will go down in history moments of our sport at this level. Just truly fantastic. And like we were talking about earlier this week, well, I'm not sure we'll ever see something like that happen again, but the conditions are looking flat. If it's going to happen, there's a possibility it could happen here. It's a great venue. It's a great opportunity for athletes to let their speed fly. And I think we're seeing a French swimmer up at the front at the moment.
Yeah, it's hard to pick whether that's Logan Fontaine or Sasha Veli, but I'm sure as they make their way back towards the end of the lap, we will be able to pick it a little bit easier. But looks like Ivan Puskovic still sitting in second. He's got a really high head lift on his stroke, so I haven't seen that head come up yet. He's just sitting in behind what looks like Fontaine at the moment. But yeah, it's obviously early stages. The sprint lap is up for grabs, and of course, you know, especially for those USA athletes, they have to travel a long way. Some prize money early on will just settle the nerves as to what this race could be for them.
Oh yeah, that's such a fantastic point. You know, that's what's so great about this first lap. Get in, go do something, hopefully make some money from it, and then you know you can see how everything else unfolds and keep pushing and keep trying. And also just in terms of encouraging the junior athletes to get in and feel like they have a chance to win some money as well, because you know it's so competitive that you don't really have any room for mistakes in these 10Ks. So if you can get in early, do something, set yourself up in a good position, and then allow the rest of the race to continue, it's always really important.
And Alice, this race is dramatically different to the last time we were racing at this level at the most recent World Champs, where in Singapore, very warm conditions to be racing in, which obviously impacts the speed of which these athletes can maintain during the race. We've just received confirmation 22.5 degrees in the water. That's going to mean even faster racing.
Yes, definitely. The temperatures we were seeing at the World Championships are like much higher than this. It was touching into 30s. So here, this is much more of that happy playground that athletes are sitting in. 22 and a half, it's going to feel ever so slightly fresh for these athletes. Normally when you get into a swimming pool, 26, 27 degrees. So you'll still get a little like, oh, that feels cold, but it won't be a problem. It's that perfect temperature to get in and swim fast at. So I think we are expecting a really, really hard effort today, as we always do with a 10K, with a marathon swim. But the conditions looking flat like this can just kind of glide across. You notice as actual like minimal sighting from the athletes because the water is so flat. You don't need to sight that much. Whereas comparing it back to races that we see in like Setchibal, where it's in that bay in the ocean, it gets quite big waves and there's a lot of chop, there's a lot of current. You're having to sight a lot. So at the moment, you're seeing these athletes just kind of take their lines, and it just looks like a swimming pool at the moment.
Yeah, it looks absolutely incredible, and you can see the speed starting to come into this race as we come down now to finish off the first of 6 laps. Of course, this being the sprint lap, just to the right of screen, you can see it is Logan Fontaine leading the way. Or as we just turned the shots there, but interesting to note, Alice, I saw Marc-Antoine Olivier just creeping up into, oh, there we have it, on that left-hand side of the screen. The closest cap to you, wearing the FRA, is Marc-Antoine Olivier. This is exactly where he likes to position himself for these sprint laps.
Absolutely. This man always knows where to be at the right time. I've called him like the king of consistency, Mr. Consistent. If there is a podium to get on, Marc-Antoine, will pretty much be on it. I actually should really work out the statistic of how many podiums he's been on at this level in the past 2, 3 years, because it's just really something special. Had a tough 10K back at Worlds just gone. Was like kind of like knocked out in the water. I think someone literally had to get in and rescue him. Thankfully, he was safe. Thankfully, he was cleared to swim for the rest of the week and went on to win some fantastic medals. So. A really, really fierce competitor. He knows where to be at the right time, as I've said, and he is currently our series leader. Was the lead won in 2024, so he's looking to retain that title, and it's going to be hard to come past him. The odds are very much in his favour.
Yeah, we'll get into those odds in just a second, because you're right, Alice. He has deservedly earned that title of Mr. Consistent. He has an acute sense of knowing when there's cash on the line. He did take out the overall sprint title last year, as well as the overall title. So when there is an opportunity to take home some prize money, you best believe Marc-Antoine Olivier is up for the fight. But at this stage, Logan Fontaine taking a little bit of a different strategy than what we've seen all season, just sitting out in front. And he's opened up a little bit of a gap to, I believe, Hector Pardo there.
Yeah, just gonna shout out Hector for a sec. He kind of set a world record in doing swimming the 3 largest lakes in England, and he did that in 24 hours. So there's something called the Three Peaks Challenge in Britain, where you climb, the 3 highest mountains in Scotland, Wales, and England. And he did the same with lakes in swimming in Scotland, Wales, and England. So really, really fantastic feat. He's been really vocal about getting clean water and improving the state of our waters around the world. So great to see him up at the front here. He hasn't had exactly the season he would like, but he told me that he's been back in training. He's been going well. So really, really great to see him up at the front and taking it on with Marc-Antoine. And are we calling that is Logan Fontaine, isn't it?
I think so. You look at the size of the biceps there. That's like Logan Fontaine. He's a very strong boy. I'm not 100% sold, but we'll go with it just for the plot.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking the size of him. Sasha's ever so slightly more leaner, a bit taller. So, but you know, Sasha might have had a quite a strong last month or so and put on some bulk. So, hey, who are we to judge?
Yeah. But we'll run with Fontaine leading the way, sitting behind Marc-Antoine Olivier, and just behind that is, of course, Hector Pardo. There's a swimmer that swims on the inside, or the outside of the course, in fact, trying to get a quicker line into that finish. That's an Italian cap. You know, there's about 16 Italians in this field, I believe, so good luck picking that one as well. But as we come down to finish off this sprint lap, Alice, it's been an exciting way to start the racing here in Golfo Aranci, and the conditions certainly turning it on.
Yes, definitely. And, you know, just speaking to the Italian point at the moment, there will always be another Italian ready to take you on. So you beat one, there will be another one right behind you. And 16, what a showing. That's fantastic. You know, it's really great to see a country putting out so much depth and in their home waters as well.
And just to make it even more difficult for us, there's now a couple of Italian caps that have decided to pull up near the front. So Logan Fontaine certainly not having it his own way now as they come down to finish off this first lap. He's been sucked into the pack alongside Marc-Antoine Olivier, and I believe these two groups are going to meet on the pontoon line. This is just the drama that is created from this sprint lap. You can see on the right side of the course, that yellow cap is Hector Pardo. He's got an eye into the finish as well. So we're going about 15 wide here as we come down to finish off lap one. Remember, $1,000 on the line. David Bethlehem now popping his head up at the front. A big push here from Hector Pardo as we go down to finish off lap one. We can't quite see exactly where they are sitting. Here we have it as we're all across and get a shot of the finish line now. Let's make sure they come through cleanly. Who's going to get there first? Oh, it looks like Bethlehem just on the outside of the course. Tough one there for Hector Pardo as he immediately comes to a stop and takes that feed, but came out relatively clean in what was chaotic end to lap one, Alice.
Oh yeah, I mean there is so much to get into there. Just shouting out Hector's feed really quick. If you like want to learn how to, you know, get a good feed and look at what the best in the world are doing, I think that was a really great example of being able to see an athlete very well. You could see Hector's cap very easily, pick that up, get that in, and found space for himself to take that feed. And just that sprint finish at the end, we do have confirmation that David Bethlehem took that out. Behind him, Hector Pardo, Olivier Fontaine, Veli, kind of all of the usual suspects that you expect to see at the top. And then going into De Tullio from Italy, Cho from Chinese Taipei. I think he had a fantastic swim at Worlds. I think he was in maybe. I'll have to check that, but he did have an amazing swim, breaking into definitely the top 15. Kapla from Poland, great swim back in Croatia, just gone at the Len Cup, took out that win. And moving down, you know, we still got a very heavy pack, still got so many important swimmers in there. You can see Acarenza only 5 seconds behind, so you know it's kind of inconsequential at the moment. I expect the pace might drop ever so slightly because we don't have that obvious like, I'm going to take this out and lead. Potentially David Bethlehem might want to do that, but I don't know if he's kind of settled back in and is going to let everything unfold. So we'll see how this goes.
But Alice, as we now have finished, I guess the sprint laps for the men, unequivocally a success this year. Just to have that influx of chaos, it's unmatched to what we've seen at open water World Cup stop on the first lap, to just inject what is so much excitement, and then I guess to see it all settle down on lap two it just doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, oh yeah, it's just because it's 10K, I'm just like, where's it going to go? What's the vibe going to be? What are athletes thinking? And again, I'm just playing into the fact that it has been like a bit of an off season. Kind of. So I know there've been some breaks taken. There were some weeks away. There were some holidays that I saw on Instagram that looked very good. So I think keeping the pace hot it's definitely the right strategy. I just hope it's like someone is able to achieve it. Basically, I hope someone can do it because you want to thin out this pack as much as possible. There are so many incredible athletes stuck within there, and athletes that will surprise you. You know, we saw a surprise from Luca Karl, for example, from Austria. He's not competing here today. He came fourth at the World Championships just gone, an incredible swim. Oh, sorry, fifth at the World Championships just gone, an incredible swim. But this is the point with open water. There's always opportunities like that to break into that top 10 and that top 5.
Luke Cole, a school teacher on the side as well, so this goes to show Alice that if you give it a crack, anything's possible.
Yes, that's what I love about this sport. It rewards a patience and a resilience and a tenacity, but it also allows kind of anybody to be like, hey, if I'm willing to do the work, if I'm willing to put myself in positions, if I can get my tactics right. Yes, sometimes the stars have to align to make that happen, but you can make some real magic happen. And so, you know, I'm really hoping he's a name that we'll be seeing swimming a lot in the future. I'm sure he's receiving some good funding from Austria now, and I'm really excited for his future. Yeah, being a school teacher, like, as his full-time job, and then coming fifth at the World Championships. It's stories like that really make sports so exciting.
It's so true, and I guess it speaks to why this prize money is so incredibly important for these athletes to supplement, I guess, what would be their primary income, or even potentially for the likes of Marc-Antoine Olivier, have the support to make this their primary job. And it just makes it so much easier on your training workload if this is your sole focus, right?
Yes, definitely. You know, and I think that's what I love about Marc-Antoine at the moment. He's really just committed to being like, oh, well, you know, there's $50,000 on the line. That could easily be mine. That's a very good year's worth of work, and then including the prize money that you get on the day as well, it can really stack up to be something very special. So I love that athletes are really properly committing to the World Cups now. Before it used to be like, oh, there'd be a select few that kind of everybody picked out, and then there were other fringe ones which weren't picked up as much. But you know, there's a real effort from World Aquatics to encourage the athletes to go to all of them. We're seeing that with the athlete experience kind of series that's running through it, where a select few athletes have been kind of encouraged, paid for to go to the World Cups to compete at them, and then they're doing some really cool things alongside it, like doing camps for the local children. I think I saw they were doing scuba diving in Golfo Aranci a couple of days ago. So amazing, right?
Oh, incredible! I mean, that's the benefit of going to these incredible venues as well. And you sort of touched on it before with Hector and what he's doing to the side of his swimming career is trying to seek for a cleaner water, a more sustainable future. And that's really tied into a lot of the themes that we've seen from World Aquatics over the last couple of years with these World Cup stops, is how we can better utilize the water in a sustainable manner. And I guess going scuba diving and understanding the impacts that humans have had on the coast of Sardinia, and I guess the legacy now of the current generation and the future generations, to make sure that we are sustainable and clean the water and care for the environment, just so that the generations to come can swim in these incredible venues. And that's where open water is so special, because it goes beyond the boundaries of just swimming in water.
You are so right. There have been so many efforts from World Aquatics and from the swimmers to make sure that the sport is sustainable. You know, in its nature, this is a sustainable sport. You don't need to build a swimming pool and have a plant room and have all of these chemicals which go into it. You've got some amazing bodies of water. If we look after them and we cherish them as we should, they'll keep giving to us and keep giving us amazing moments like we get to see in all of our races.
And if you want to know more about the initiatives that World Aquatics has introduced over the last couple of years to make sure that these events continue to be sustainable, please do head to their website, or of course check out all their social platforms, be that Instagram, Facebook, or of course YouTube, where you are most likely watching along today. Please do so. And if you are interested in furthering the cause, I'm sure there's some call to actions in which you can join in. If not, of course, I'm sure swimmers like Hector Pardo will be more than willing to have a conversation on that. But I guess, Alice, we've talked about the prize money throughout today's race already, but I think what's important here is to give a bit of a background on how we currently sit in the overall standing. So while today's focus is definitely still on the 10-kilometer race itself, there's a huge amount riding on this race because this one will decide the overall World Cup title, as we've touched on, for 2025, and with it, obviously, a serious prize purse. Coming into Golfo Aranci, Marc-Antoine Olivier leads the series on 1,950 points after another year of consistency across all stops, which we've touched on. His teammate, Logan Fontaine, sits in second on 1,650 points, 300 points behind, and it is currently a tie for third between Italy's Dario Verani and Andrea Filadelli on 1,450 points apiece, so still within striking distance. Here's how today will play out, though. If Olivier finishes inside the top 5, he clinches the overall title no matter what happens behind him. If Fontaine wins, then Olivier needs to finish at least 6 to hold him off. Anything 6 or lower for Olivier combined with a Fontaine victory would hand the championship and, of course, the biggest check to his teammate. For the Italians, it's a long shot. They need a win here in this race and hope that Olivier finishes 10th or worse and Fontaine is off the podium. So ultimately, it is all on the line. The overall World Cup winner takes home $50,000. Second will take home $35,000, and third will take home 25. So every position in this race could mean thousands gained or lost by the time of the finish line. In short, ultimately, Olivier controls his destiny. Fontaine, the only one who can truly take him out, unless there is some final finishing chaos from Verani and Filadelli. And Alice, if we throw our minds back to Hong Kong last year, where it was Dario Verani and Marcelo Guidi in tangles onto the finish line, anything could happen in this race.
Gosh, yeah, that was such a great way of describing it because I was trying to think, what happened? You said the tangle on the finish line and the picture came clearly into my mind. That was really something. And I think there was some anger, some annoyance and passion at the end. But I do think everything's all good now. But I think they just got a little bit too excited, a little bit confused perhaps. And it ended up being what it was. But yes, moments like that in open water, you this is the thing, you swim for 2 hours, basically 2 hours, and it comes down to such close finishes where you've got all of this energy, you're fighting for it, you feel like you've put in the most energy, you really don't want anybody to come over the top of you, and in moments like that, that's when our sport is so exciting but also so volatile. So we'll see what unfolds today. Marc-Antoine Olivier is very good at making things happen for himself. That's how he's got into this position where he's 300 points clear in the standings at the moment. That's how he became the champion for the sprint and the overall last year. He makes things happen. So, I mean, to finish out of the podium, I personally don't predict that for him today. So but it's open water, so really hard to know what's going to happen all the time, every time.
That's right. We've said the consistent thing that's happened this year is the inconsistency of the racing, and I guess it sort of speaks to the strength that we've seen from Marc-Antoine Olivier throughout the series. He's just been so strong. Like, even if you think back, Alice, to what we saw in Ibiza, where it was the most chaotic race from basically start to finish, ultimately with Italian podium with Filadelli taking the win ahead of Verani and Ilario. But who was in fourth in that race? Marc-Antoine Olivier, just managing to find his way through the chaos. And I guess that's why in the pre-race sort of record, when we were chatting, that's why we believe that this race is ultimately Marc-Antoine's to lose as the leader of the series.
Yes, definitely, and a lot of pressure comes with that. You can see how far in front you are, and you're kind of like, okay, I just kind of need to make I need to do what I do every time and make that happen. But then at the same time, everybody else is going for this as well. Everybody else wants that opportunity. And just want to comment real quick, just move away from that for a second. The rain has really picked up, and you can see the boys kind of leaning into the wind here. So it looks like the water's still staying quite flat, but at the same time, it's so hard to tell. It looks flat from our position, but you get into waters like that, and it feels like you're going for a roller coaster with the wind and the chop. But still, I think it seems like it's quite sheltered at the same time. But I feel like you have a better read on water than me, Will.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you summarized it perfectly before, is when you're in the water, you don't really recognize the conditions that are going on around you. And almost, I mean, personally, I find, I don't know what you think, Alice, but when there's all this chaos happening around you, like what the athletes would be going through at the moment with this massive amount of rain coming down, it almost inspires you to be like, yeah, we're doing it tough, we're in this together, let's work hard. Sort of, it's anti, yeah, I don't think it should work like that, but it does for the athletes.
I know what you mean. So whenever I speak about my sport, I say, "Oh, I did 10K marathon swim." The horror that comes across people's faces, the horror, the absolute, I can't believe you did that. And I'm always really proud of it, to be honest. I am really proud of it. I think at the Olympics, it's often said that the 10K marathon swim is the hardest summer Olympic sport. It's a claim that I've been walking around saying for the past 4 years, and nobody's challenged me on it yet. And I'm going to keep saying it until someone tries and challenges me to find a harder summer Olympic sport. And yeah, I think it's something we should be very proud of. It's a tough sport. It requires mental resilience, physical resilience. Look at this rain at the moment. And also, I just want to comment on how the rain might actually be annoying in the sense of, yes, you're swimming, you're not going to notice it, but in open water, when you feel some splash, that's when you know somebody's around you. You're kind of checking like where splash is coming off of. Can you feel it on your shoulders when it shouldn't really be there? That means somebody's probably quite close next to you on that side. When you're having rain come down, it kind of takes away that sensation of knowing where people are in your like local vicinity. So in that sense, obviously you can just look around, but you just get you get less feedback on what is happening with the pack.
No, I mean, that's a sensational point, and also it's very hard to sight when you've got this much chaos happening around you. And ultimately, what that leads to, Alice, is the situation where these athletes wouldn't want to be right now, where you have a very fast athlete leading the way, David Bethlehem, who thrives on chaos and will be trying to pull away here.
Yes, oh my gosh, look at this. Wow. Okay, yeah, you're so right about the sighting. You're looking up and you're just kind of seeing water. And as far as I'm aware, I've never swam in rain like this. So I can't really pull back of like what it's like and what it's like to look up. But you'll be looking up and trying to sight, seeing kind of grey in front of you, seeing like a grey mist and just unsure. And this is where you have to be so switched on to what is going on around you. Who is leading? Can you see who's leading? If you can't see who's leading, you need to go and see who is leading. Because like you said, you're looking up, you're seeing David Bethlehem, you might be thinking, oh, okay, oh dear, we need to make something happen as a pack here. We can't let him get space and get away, because then all of a sudden, yes, you want the pack to thin out, especially if you're, a Marc-Antoine Olivier or a Hector Pardo who likes to sit in there and then sprint past people at the end. You want the pack to thin out, but you also don't want David Bethlehem to just control the pace of this race, because he will take it and he will run with it.
Yeah, I guess that's probably... we've seen similar situations in the past where David Bethlehem, as you mentioned in the first lap, he likes to sit at the front, he likes to control that pace, but all the race really here is running through Marc-Antoine Olivier. Everyone will know that everyone's sort of watching Marc-Antoine Olivier, but that's not the only narrative that's at play. As we talked about in, again, the pre-show, we've yet to see David Bethlehem take a World Cup stop win. He just had a breakout performance at the most recent World Championships where he was on the podium in the 5K and the knockout race. So I guess, Alice, when you have those breakout swims, talk to us about how much pressure's almost lifted from your shoulders, and the next time you get to swim, which we're seeing now for David, there's this alleviation of pressure and you're able to swim more freely.
Yeah, that's such a good way of saying like breakout swims and taking off the pressure. The way it was described to me is knowing what it feels like to be at the front and knowing what it feels like to get on that podium and then knowing what it feels like to win. And once that happens, you realize, yes, it's difficult, yes, it's challenging, but also that you can do it and that it is achievable. It's not some like mythical thing that's in front of you that only certain athletes can attain. You can do it too. And it's so fantastic that we have seen that breakout moment from David Bethlehem in that 3K knockout. We saw him get back on the podium at the World Championships. So, he's always been at the front gunning for it and making that happen. So I'm really, really willing and hoping that he can continue with that energy and with that effort to take more podiums and keep winning.
One of the other elements of this race, which I think is really important, is we're coming off racing in Singapore where the water was hot. We had the fastest swimmer that we've ever seen in open water take the lead pretty much from the start of each of the races in Singapore, to where we are today, where David Bethlehem, incredibly fast, but he's not Florian Wellbrock, and the water's a lot cooler. So the effort for these athletes, whilst would still be hard, would feel significantly easier than what these athletes would have swum in Singapore. And I guess the reason I mention that is what we saw in Singapore and what we see at every World Championships, you're only allowed to enter 2 per federation. So the likes of Italy, a number of those athletes didn't get to race the 10 kilometres in Singapore and wouldn't know the effort that the likes of David Bethlehem had been put through, the likes of Marc-Antoine Olivier, Dominica Azzarenza sitting in second there. So he's one of those fresh athletes coming in. I guess what's more of a benefit to these athletes, not knowing how hard Singapore was and in comparison how much easier this race is feeling, or I guess the contrary?
Ooh, that is such a good question. So I would think coming off of the back of a race like Singapore and knowing that I don't think it can ever get any harder than this is a really powerful place for swimmers to sit in. Whilst every race feels difficult and challenging, there is always that one race in someone's mind where you're like, that was the hardest effort that I've put into an open water race in the past X amount of years. And I think for many, many athletes, the feedback we were getting off of Singapore is that was that race for them. So I think whilst for some people it might be quite like, oh, that was really difficult, I don't know if I want to do this, like it's a really hard sport, you can get into that kind of negative spiral. If you can break that spiral and say, actually no, might not have got the result I wanted, but challenged, put myself in a position that I wasn't quite expecting, and let's try and improve. Let's get better. Let's get stronger. And I think the majority of athletes will be on that curve now. They would have had those initial, like, this is really hard moments in Singapore, but there's been enough time to let that kind of trauma and experience heal and now move through and, take the learnings from Singapore, which was great racing, fantastic racing, and then move into this and continue with that. So for the likes of Dominica Azzarenza, who was probably watching Singapore, most definitely watching Singapore, I'm sure, and thinking, I want to be there, I want to be in that, and then coming here and having this opportunity to put himself amongst everybody is going to be really, really exciting for him, and very exciting for us as always, Will.
Yeah, like we said there, I mean, there's so many storylines to unpack here, and the only way to see them play out is to watch the race sort of swim. You see at the top of the screen there's one Italian cap that sits in second. That is Azzarenza, as we mentioned. This is his return race to high-level world-class swimming, and at this stage, he looks very confident out in front. Often a very hard thing to do is coming back from a break into high-level racing, but so far he looks really good. One of the athletes I wanted to note as well, Alice, going through in 6th position after 2 laps down, is Krzysztof Rosowski. He is one of the athletes that probably had one of the more disappointing showings in Singapore. Now, that being said, that was ultimately the toughest race conditions for Krzysztof to be swimming in, and ultimately, the conditions played a big part in why he wasn't able to have the performance he would have hoped for. But you mentioned before some of the athletes would have taken a break after swimming at World Champs. For an athlete like Krzysztof, where it would have been a bitter pill to swallow, how do you manage your break after that period, and how quickly, in fact, here he is leading the race now on cue, how quickly can you bounce back from those sort of results?
I mean, an athlete like Krzysztof Wazowski, you're never going to count him out. You can't. As always, you might not have the performance he quite wants, but you know he's going to be back in. He's going to be back challenging and looking to make that happen. So Singapore, for example, it couldn't be everybody's race. You know, the kind of the heat that they were dealing with, and unfortunately, because of the water quality on one of the days, it was kind of pushed back, and then things were in flux. It was challenging for a number of reasons. So for him, for an athlete like him, it's one of those where you're like, okay, that happened. Let's move on. Let's look. He's clearly looking towards LA. We saw Paltrinieri recently say as well that he's looking towards LA as well, which is so exciting. Sorry, just because there's so many like titans of our sport that are staying in it, that are sticking with it, that are going to be going into their 30s, which is not old by any means, but they're going into their 30s. It's older than what we typically see in swimming. But you know, you've got the youngsters coming through, you know, like David Bethlehem, Sasha Veli, Kaito Tsushimori of Japan as well. There's like a drive from the youngsters, and like they are genuinely like really putting pressure on those at the top to make sure, you know, that we can stay in our positions. And so, well, David Bethlehem is at the top, and that is my point. There's like a real kind of clash of like generations there, and it's just so exciting. But anyway, back to Krzysztof Wazowski. He is who he is. He's fantastic. He's Olympic champion. How are you ever going to count out an Olympic champion in any race which he enters? And he will always get in and try again. And I think that's what I love so much about him. He doesn't resign himself at any point. You'll often see him at the front pushing for it, and then maybe potentially falls away towards the end, depending on where he's at in the season and training and things like that. But he's always looking to make it happen for himself.
That he is, and that's why he is an Olympic champion, and that's why he has taken the lead here on this third lap. It's weird to see the conditions the way that they are here in Golfo Aranci. We usually used to the sun shining, and I'm sure the sun will come out at some point in this race. One of the key things that we're looking for this weekend, Alice, is we haven't yet seen an individual Italian gold here on their home venue. And whilst it's not often that you do get to see a home venue gold medal, with the strength of the Italian open water swimming on both the men's and the women's side, it is quite remarkable that we're yet to see a gold medal here in Golfo Aranci for the hometown heroes. I guess we are missing Gregorio Paltrinieri from this race. He unfortunately isn't racing. He had a bit of a break after what was an incredible performance in Singapore. But I guess a lot of that pressure now falls to the likes of Guidi, Filadelli, Varani, Atzarenza, but also on the women's side, you know, the likes of Pozzebon and of course Tadauchi. So I guess we saw it in Ibiza where Angela Martinez stormed home to claim a home gold medal. How much of that do you think is a factor for the Italians in the water today?
I really hope so. Golfo Aranci has been on the circuit for a number of years now. It's a fantastic venue. I've heard often it's an athlete favourite. Absolutely beautiful place. I know we're not getting to see that beauty quite at the moment with this rough weather, but I think Italians are a strong swimming nation, a strong open water nation. They want to be on the podium as much as possible. You know, we saw that clean sweep of the podium in Ibiza, where you're just like, okay, I guess this is happening now. It's an Italian dominance, and they'll want to make that happen again. They'll want to do that. They'll want to get that gold medal and the bronze and the silver, and give their athletes all of those opportunities to showcase to their federation and to their country that they are a nation to beat in open water. So yeah, I think this will definitely be on their minds, especially the likes of Acarenza, who has taken a year out, coming back into it now. You know, what a statement to make if you can get in and take home an iconic gold for your country in home waters.
Yeah, how's the story arc as well there, Alice? Like a year off, a new dad, come back, dominate the race in what is, as we said, the toughest summer Olympic sport, and it's standing up to that title today. It would just be a truly monumental moment for the sport, with so many storylines on the line as well, here as we're now approaching the halfway mark.
Yes, yeah, you're so right. There's so much going on here, and this is what is so fun about open water swimming. There's so many athletes in the water, and each one will have a story from the race. Each one will have their personal aims, their goals. For some swimmers, that might not be getting on the podium, that might be breaking into the top 10 for a first time, but that's all part of the process. That's all part of learning what it's like to be up at the front, to put yourself in those positions, and as I keep saying, make it happen. So, I think the main ones we're looking towards today to be the kind of those storylines that we're speaking about, definitely Marc-Antoine, Olivier. Within that, which Italian swimmers are we going to get on the podium? I'm confident we'll probably get one. I think we'll probably get one. But which one of those will that be? Because there's, like you said, 16 of them to choose from.
Yeah, no, that's right, and I guess, speaks to the strength that this venue has created as well. As whilst there hasn't been an individual medal, I'm pretty sure they have medaled, individual gold, sorry, they have medaled in each time we've raced here in Golfo Aranci. So it's been fruitful to get on the podium. We just haven't seen them on top of the podium individually. Of course, they did take out the relay last year here in Golfo Aranci. So yeah, I guess almost a bit of a hoodoo. Obviously, we see there that there is a bit of a marquee that's hosting that crowd, but the crowd wouldn't be as strong currently due to the downpour that we're currently seeing here on the Sardinian coast. But even through that, Alice, you can just see the beauty that this venue holds. The Sardinia, well and truly becoming one of the favorite stops on the series.
Yes, definitely. If you are wondering if you are wondering what the course may look like without the rain, do go check out the World Aquatics Instagram page. They put up some really beautiful content of the athletes doing the scuba diving, and then go check out the athletes pages as well. Always want to shout out and support our athletes who are, looking to make things happen in the water, but also outside of the water too, in terms of, raising the profile of our sport. So, it's, as we're saying, it's the conditions you're dealt, it's what you deal with. It looks like we have a bit of a breakaway here, do we, Will?
Yeah, that looks like there's 3 swimmers that have separated themselves from that chase group. So, Alice, almost verbatim from 2 years ago, this was very much the situation that happened where we did see there was a bigger pack that separated at that point. There was 6 swimmers that managed. Oh no, the boat. Sorry, the boat was just blocking their chase. Well, I was just about to say the depth that we're seeing here at the last lap. 38th position was only 17 seconds off the lead, and in 38th position was Charlie Clark of the USA. So there are so many athletes still in contention that really, if you're looking at 17 seconds down, 3.5 kilometers into the race, it's truly an open field.
You are so right. The depth that we look at, especially with the men's race, is really, really special. Kind of like I was alluding to earlier. There's such a depth that it will just be always such a diverse, like, top 30, essentially. You'll get some really great swimmers who end up falling into 20th or 30th position just because of the competitive nature of the event. So it's big, it's heavy at the moment. We did get completely catfished by that boat. I was thinking the boat was like behind the line of swimmers. Well, that's what it looked like to me anyway. But now it was like an optical illusion. When somebody tells you how the other way to look at it and then it's broken. I was like, oh, okay, I see what I was looking at now. But I am very much willing and manifesting a breakaway. I think there's definitely like a hot pace at the front. It's just not quite hot enough to really make that break happen. But I think all it's going to take is a mistake from the pack, and it will start to unfold and start to unravel for the size of them. But I am confident that we will have Marc-Antoine Olivier catching that break and knowing what is happening.
Well, if it was going to be any day that there would be a break, it would be a day like today. Interesting to note here, Alice, we didn't see it pop through at the end of that second lap, but Golfo Aranci sitting in 48th position, 19 seconds off the lead. And we often say in races like this, the race starts where Aranci is. He very rarely ever moves back when he swims forward in a race, and ultimately, most of the time, swims into that top 10, top 5, and even onto the podiums at most times. So you say that, there's basically 48 swimmers that are still in contention for this race.
Yeah, I do love that we have Varane in the men's race as that like point where you're like, okay, if he's that far back, then everybody else is kind of like in the race still. Like it could go either way. And we're seeing two separate lines here. I think I can't quite tell if it's like a full break, but it's definitely like a sizable division. We'll have to see when they get to the turning buoy if it's the line. It's Christoph, and I think it might be Hector Pardo of Britain there sat in there too, and there's about 5 swimmers. Yeah,
this is a tough one because Christoph is a very experienced racer. He doesn't move across unless he knows, and you can see now on the outside of that chase group, or what is like I guess the main group, sitting on the outside is Marc-Antoine Olivier, and he's just toying with the idea of shooting across, and that actually looks like he has gone across, which is a very key move. You'll see now the reaction here. Does the pack want to follow Marc-Antoine across? There's some swimmers that are going there to sit behind Christoph, and this is the chaos that you're talking about, Alice. These conditions make the athletes doubt their ability. They're not used to swimming in heavy rain. They're not used to being challenged in this way, and often pockets of races will pop up and opportunities like this will occur. And you can see now 4 very separate lines across the screen. On the screen now, the main group, which holds, I think, the best of the lines, but ultimately with Krzysztof Rozowski, he's not going to want to work any harder than he has to. So by swimming on a deliberate inside line is a very deliberate move from the Olympic champion to separate himself from the field ultimately.
Yeah, and what I loved about that shot there, where we're kind of like seeing Marc-Antoine hop over, was you could see David Bethlehem of Hungary, the white cap at the front, looking over and going, what do I do? You could really see that in him because, yes, as you said, you're so right, Will. The line will not be good. Look at that difference. Like, it's really always it's hard to tell on screen, but that's anywhere from a 20 to a 50-meter gap, I think. And it's like, okay, well, do I want to swim that further to get in the pack? But I know those swimmers are, I know Christoph's up there. Christoph's Olympic champion. David Bethlehem will have good insight into how he's been training, how he's been feeling. And so, you can see him like toying with that idea. Marc-Antoine Olivier hopping over. If I saw Marc-Antoine Olivier hop over, I personally would have hopped over and just kind of trusted his instinct and trusted his ability to know what is going on and what to do. But the packs will have to come back together, like soon, when they get to this buoy. And that's when you'll be able to tell really what has been gained and what has potentially been lost from some of the swimmers.
Yeah, ultimately, that feeding gate will prove absolutely pivotal here. I think that's Domenico Azzarenza leading the way. So a very experienced operator leading that main group as well, who, as we can see, are swimming very quickly on a straight line. Ultimately for them, they're just trying to mitigate any damage that can be caused by that breakaway group. It's hard to tell without knowing exactly where they're sitting. But Alice, absolutely exceptional point that you made there. And very rarely do we actually get to see this play out in this fashion. But ultimately, these moments happen almost every second of a race, where you have the moment where you say, oh, do I make that move? What do I do now? How do I make these judgment decisions? What we saw, as you pointed out, from David Bethlehem was one of those moments on camera. But as an athlete yourself, how often does that happen during a race?
Gosh, you're so right. How it does it literally like every second, nearly. It's probably a bit of hyperbole, but that's what it feels like. You're taking stroke after stroke. Your body's kind of just moving through it, and you're just trying to like take yourself away from the physical effort of the swim. But then your mind is kind of like, okay, what's going on there? What's going on next to me? What's going on in front of me? What's going on around me? You can see gaps opening and closing, like ebbing and flowing. And you have the option to move into them, and you have to keep making those decisions. And you keep making decision after decision after decision and hoping each one will add up to the result that you're looking for and the result that you want, and that none of them will be detrimental. Sometimes you will make detrimental decisions. That's open water swimming. Mistakes will be punished. It's just how it works, you know, at the level that we're talking about operating at as well. You cannot afford to make mistakes. So David Bethlehem, you could see him toying with it. I don't think he did make that jump across, and now that is that him sat out at the front there? Or is that a USA Cup?
Yeah, it's hard to pick those two different lines as they come down now to the feeding pontoon there. These two groups will merge. You can see a very stern cut back from Krzysztof Rozowski, who leads that chase group. On screen now is the main pack, and you can see this group that has separated itself isn't actually going to be beneficial. But one of the things that I'll circle back to in a second, Alice, is touching on just how hard this sport is as we wait now for the halfway mark. 5,000 meters swum, 3 laps still to come. A very crucial feeding pontoon this is. We can see who leads the way. I believe it's Atzarenza of Italy who goes through first there. We'll get an update shortly, but you see just how tight it all is. So Philadelphia leads Atzarenza. In fact, Fontaine sits in third. Where is Rozovsky? We'll see in a second. Olivier, Guidi, Pardo. So ultimately that main pack, the better of the sit through that turn there. Kapala in 7th for Poland. Veli, Kovac, Serez, a big mover on that lap. Bonavota, Bethlehem. We're still waiting for Krzysztof Rozowski as he comes through. There's still more and more athletes. Malechi of Brazil, the junior champion from last year. And there is Rozowski back in 16th. So we touched on it. You know, you have to commit in these races. You have to give yourself the opportunity. You have to put doubt into the likes of Philadelphia's head. But ultimately, you know, the Italians, they're so experienced at racing at this level. They get to experience a very high-level pack race at the national championships, let alone racing here on the higher stage. What Rozovski's done there is made the Italians question their ability, but also has made the pack question exactly how this race is going to play out. It's not a normal race. We've seen that occur through the first 5Ks. And ultimately, Alice, that's why we say that this sport is the hardest summer Olympic sport, because you have what is already a monumental task of swimming 10,000 meters. You add into it the emotional and mental toll of racing, and that's why it makes it so difficult as a swimmer.
You are so right. You know, it's hard as it is physically, but then when you put in effort like that, and it might not pay off in the way that you want, it is so challenging. And this is where athletes of this caliber will just say, okay, didn't work out. What other angle can I use? What can I play with? Do I want to sit in behind Philadelphia, let him do the work, let him lead, and then try and like nip past him at the end and get a sprint finish? This race, the pack is still very heavy. The thinning out that I think quite a few athletes clearly wanted by moving into that side pack and like, you know, okay, we're taking a slower line, but let's really put a hard effort down, didn't pay off. So this is where you kind of have to reset, restructure, rethink. You haven't got, I'm sorry to keep bringing them up, but I haven't got the Florian Wellbrock who you know you can rely on to do that effort for a prolonged amount of time and thin everybody out. So what is your strategy? What is your strategy when you're looking at a pack that is this large? How are you going to get your fingers on the touchpad first is what every athlete will be thinking and trying to make happen for themselves.
And exactly how that plays out is what we're all counting on, Alice, which is why it's so exciting. We're seeing a little bit of a mix-up here, so it will be interesting to see. I think there was a bit of a change in the lead of the race. We went through there in about 56 minutes, so the pace is certainly hot here given the conditions, and ultimately now this is when the big moves are going to happen. So no surprise, Alice, Marc-Antoine Olivier making his way into that top 5 position.
Yeah, it's always one of those things where you're like, oh, you know, he took the further line. He might not have been in the right place, but he just makes it happen. He just time after time again makes it happen. You know, you see him at the moment. That Was that Sasha Valley? Sorry. In the French cap, closest to us. I wasn't sure. It might have been Sasha Valley, but you can see the cap of Karpas from Poland. Had a really, really amazing swim. Is that like just want to shout out the Polish swimmers real quick and Claudia Toshevitz of Poland as well. Having some really, really special swims, and this is what I keep saying. We haven't really spoke about it yet on this broadcast, but countries that typically weren't the open water swimming nations, taking their athletes around, giving them the opportunity to get in, and that is Marc-Antoine Olivier in that French cap on our screen at the moment, really just like driving through as always as we see from him. But just back to the countries that are giving their athletes those opportunities to go and swim, open water, like to be the top, to be winning those world medals, you have to get in and get the experience. You can't race regionally or nationally and expect to get the experience that you get in these races because yes, learn how to swim open water, you learn the technical points of it, but you'll never get the tactics down. You have to get in and you have to try and you have to fail. And the nations that are willing to put down the budget and put down the effort for their athletes, you can see it paying dividends. You can see them going and winning at the European Cups. You can see the amazing efforts from, Hungary, from Poland. Hungary's always been a great open water swimming nation, but that besides my point. Poland, we're seeing it from Japan. America, I think, is buying into it a little bit more. Australia is also the big one at the moment, where it's like there's really been an effort. That's what it seems like from the outside, anyway. Will there's been an effort to get in and give their swimmers these opportunities.
Yeah, certainly. I think what we're seeing from the Americans now as well, Alice, which again you've made the point a number of times, is I guess the belief in what home Olympics is and the investment that then comes behind the sport to see those athletes succeed. So to have such a massive contingent racing here in Golfo Aranci from the Americans is great, not only for, I guess, the World Cups to have some more depth added to it, but also great for what potential Olympic medal for America might mean. We've seen some very strong Americans race at the Olympic Games. Haley Anderson, Ashley Twitchell, Jordan Wilimovsky. Like they've had some incredible athletes, and they've got some incredible juniors on the rise as well. That we saw last year. They actually swiped all the gold medals at the World Junior Championships last year in open water. So I guess, but you're right. The success then eventuates at that senior level through racing at this World Cup level, and that's why we've seen the likes of those nations that you've mentioned before leading the way. Out in front, it looks like we've had another lead changer. I think that might even be Logan Fontaine sitting out the front.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to agree with you. I think that's Logan Fontaine. Yeah, this is the thing. The French, the Italians, they really, really will be up there punching for it. You can see the yellow hat of Hector Pardo sat in there as well. I think David Bethlehem too. So all of the usual suspects. Again, it's just shaping up to be a sprint finish, isn't it, Will? I really think it is.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, that ultimately favors so many of the athletes that are in the water today. Really, the two athletes that wouldn't want the sprint finish, that have the ability to make a difference, are Sasha Valley and David Bethlehem. David, he won't want to commit this far out in the race, and Sasha Valley usually chooses the last sort of 1,700 to 1,500 meters to make a move. So for now, I think it's just going to be all about positioning. And ultimately, Alice, we're going to keep our eyes on Dario Varani, because he, time in, time out, is the barometer as to where the race sits. But, we've mentioned a number of federations that have continued to invest in the World Cup series. I just also want to shout out the Chinese Taipei athletes that are tucked in there, giving it a go. It's not easy to come to these World Cups, and for some, maybe the first or second time racing at this level, and to be sitting in the pack this far into this race is an incredible achievement.
You are so, so right. There are a number of nations that we like. So there's one thing not seeing them in open water, but there's one thing not seeing them as much in swimming as a whole. And Chinese Taipei is one of them. Mexico is one of them as well, and again, just time and time again, we are really seeing countries say, "Oh yeah, open water is like a really viable opportunity for our athletes to get in, to race, and to get something very special out of it." And what, like I said before, not whilst everyone will want to be on the podium, not everyone will aim to do so. You know, some of these aims might be much more top 20. And that will be enough to show their federation that, oh look, we're getting some really good results in open water. Why not invest in us? Why not let us go and travel and get that experience? And the whole point of the World Cups is to allow athletes to compete against each other, and especially for those up and coming athletes, those up and coming countries, to get that experience. And the fun thing about open water, and I think that runs through both the elite but also to the recreational, is the community which it has. Going around to competitions, the community that you feel, and like the camaraderie, is really, really special. All of these athletes, whilst they get in and they compete with each other, and there might be some passion and some emotion on the finish line, they do really mostly like each other. It is a really, really special place to be. There's less animosity. There's some real friendships that blossom through the sport because you respect each other. You know how hard you're all working. You know how difficult this sport is, but you also know how lucky you are to be able to be a part of it. And so you want to uplift and allow everybody to continue blossoming in it.
An exceptional point once again, Alice. I think we're seeing, as you mentioned, those federations really invest in it, and also the World Cups, Len Cup series that we've seen this year. A big investment into that. Actually, whilst we're on the point, a shout out to Fabio Dalu taking out the European title this year. He's of course raced a number of World Cups, but just hasn't had the opportunity to break through on an upper echelon level as of yet. I'm sure the moment is not too far away. And on the women's side, Lisa Poo taking the title. What a year it's been for her.
Oh yeah, Lisa Poo, just so fantastic. I was hoping you'd mention her. I'm just so excited for her. She's a really, really fabulous person, and she has year after year been putting herself through really tough races. She was always at the front, getting that sprint lap, competing with Ginevra Teducci of Italy for that opportunity, and she never could quite just translate it to a podium finish in after that sprint lap and throughout the rest of the race. But it was great to see her in Singapore at the World Championships take out that bronze medal in the 10K. I think everybody was so excited for it. It's the first ever World Aquatics medal for Monaco, so really, really exciting. And then just the confidence that she'd have built off of that is great, and taking out the overall lead at the Len Cup as well, it's just fantastic. And with the Len Cup, I've seen so many great athletes take that as like kind of like stepping stones for being the athletes that they are at the World Championship. So Leonie Beck from Germany, for example, she would do basically all of the Len Cups. She was going around to them, doing them, and gaining that experience. And that is what it's all about. It's about getting experience and getting those race miles in.
That's so right. There's no experience like this experience. And ultimately, Alice, I mean, no one really better to speak on this than yourself, a former world junior champion, just how hard it is to make that adjustment, not only from world junior level racing, but also from senior level racing. That transition doesn't happen overnight. And it's why, even the likes of David Bethlehem has taken what you would consider is, a quick time ultimately for most people in that career, but ultimately from coming onto the scene to where he is now at such a young age, to be as prolific as he is, but only just now being consistently on the podium. It just shows that these things don't happen overnight without racing experience.
You are so right. I just will speak to that point about the jump from junior to senior. In any sport, it feels big, but really in open water, it's like a chasm because you go from junior racing where there's quite a lot of inexperience. There's some really fast swimmers, but they don't really know what to do with their speed. They don't know how the tactics will play into it. And so when you get a bit experienced in junior racing, you can really start to play around with that and, draw it out and kind of have some fun with it, as I did. Then moving to senior, it's just like a whole different ballpark. There's no room for mistakes. You can't, your speed is kind of like mitigated massively by the fact that everybody else is as fast as you, but they're also switched on and they're also doing these races week in, week out, year after year, and building that ground of experience and resilience. So, Krzysztof Rosowski, fantastic example of an athlete who made that jump so well, was world junior champion back in 2016 in the 10K, and then Olympic champion in 2024 in Paris. So, I'm sure if you look back at his 8 years from 2016, where he was junior champion, to becoming Olympic champion in 24, I bet his results were like a roller coaster, like all over the place. Had some very good results, maybe some not very good results, but it's about that resilience of getting in there. And another athlete that we can see making that jump from junior to senior, as we just saw on screen, is our leader Sasha Veli. He was world junior champion only last year. I always forget how young Sasha Veli is. Will I always forget how young he is, because he's just came onto the senior scene and is really making himself known as one of the swimmers to watch.
That is so true, and I guess, some incredible insight there from Alice, who is, of course, a former world junior champion, knows that experience no better than anyone else on the World Cup tour, and we're, as you can see, experiencing that firsthand here, which is the point that Alice made earlier, the transition that we're seeing currently, the likes of Gregorio Paltrinieri. He's going to stay in the sport until 2028. He's made that commitment, making sure that he is going to be putting his best foot forward in LA. And ultimately, there's some incredibly tough decisions to be made for the rest of the Italian field, as we have some stalwarts of the sport that haven't got that opportunity to race at the Olympic level, like Dario Varani, who ultimately now will be facing the likes of 3 more years from Gregorio Paltrinieri. Interesting to note, as we said, this is the final stop this year, the 4 stops that conclude the Open Water Swimming World Cup for 2025. We look back through the year. In Solma Bay, the first stop this year, Florian Walbrock took the gold ahead of Logan Fontaine, Marc-Antoine Olivier. Nicholas Sloman was in 4th there, the Australian. Sasha Veli in 5th. We've seen much more of the same in the other World Cup finishes as well. In, of course, Ibiza, we saw a top 3 from Italy, Andrea Filadelli, Dario Varani, Giuseppe Ilario made that top 3. Marc-Antoine Olivier was 4th. Joey Tepper was 5th, which, again, is somewhat surprising, but it goes to show just showing up on the day, sometimes you can swim really quickly. Then we went to Setúbal for the 3rd stop. Marc-Antoine Olivier took the gold ahead of Sasha Veli. Oliver Clement rounded out that top 3. Logan Fontaine in 4th, and in 5th, Krzysztof Rosowski, 6th, Florian Walbrock, 7th, David Bethlehem, 8th, Dario Varani. Alice, we look back at the year that has been, even most notably and most recently in Setúbal, Marc-Antoine, a veteran of the sport, a bronze medalist from Rio 2016, Sasha Veli, junior world champion last year, Ollie Clement on the Olympic podium last year in Paris, but again, a rising star at 23 years of age. Logan Fontaine, a somewhat veteran. Krzysztof Rosowski, now a veteran. Florian Walbrock, a veteran. David Bethlehem, a youngster. Dario Varani, a veteran. It's so star-studded at the top of this race, and that depth now coming all the way through 30, 40 deep in the men's race.
Yeah, this is kind of, this is what I was saying about earlier. Like, you've really just got some fantastic swimmers at the top who aren't going anywhere, and they're still winning, but you have that pressure from the youngsters of the sport. And I'd class young as, like, I see Ollie Clement as young, like 23. I still think, you've got LA in you, definitely, and then Brisbane if you want. Like, and then who knows after that? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's very reasonable to expect these athletes to go into their late 20s definitely, and into their early 30s if they want, depending on how your body is and how your mind is. There's so many things wrapped up in that. But we're really spoiled. We've been saying this definitely this year and last year. We're very spoiled for the lack of retirements that we're getting. You know, there weren't many people to retire from competitive swimming at this level last year. Toby Robinson from Britain was one of the notable ones that I can think of. But beyond that, for the men, they're still all going. They're still all saying, "Hey, I'm going to LA." And if you're the likes of Akaita Tushimori, Sasha Veli, David Bethlehem's already broken onto that podium, of course, but you're looking at that thinking, "Oh, okay, I've really got a fight on my hands," even just to qualify for some of these athletes.
So we'll dive back into that in a second. For now, we see the end of lap 4 here. 2 laps to come. We're expecting the heat to start to rise, especially now as we see Sasha Veli take the lead for France Fontaine, sitting in second. A big move there from Matias Maletti of Brazil. We know the Brazilians are a big fan of the World Cups, and I'm sure they'll be cheering along around the world. Olivier Filadelli, Atarenza, Giovannoni, Guidi, Bethlehem, Kapala still sitting up there for Poland. Some big movers, as we've heard from Alice earlier. Armstrong in for Australia in 11th. That's a big move on that lap as well. Pardo sits there in the mix with a number of athletes, which we'll see come through now as well. But as we move back to that conversation, Alice, really interesting to see how it is going to sort of evolve as a sport. I mean, even if you go back to 2016, the silver medalist in that race, Spiros Giannottis, like when he raced in Rio, he was 36 years of age. So, I mean, it's been shown that you can stay in this sport for a very long time. Keep an eye just on the front of that race there as well. Sasha Veli looking like he's just separated ever so slightly. But as I was saying, 36 years of age was Spiros in Rio. So the athletes can do it, and what's going to lead to results like that is this continued investment from the likes of World Aquatics, the Land Aquatics, the support from the federations for this sport to see it become a livelihood for these athletes. Will just continue to have swimmers invest in the sport and invest in their bodies. And you know, you look at the likes of LeBron James, 40 years of age, still one of the best NBA players on planet Earth. So there is the ability, and ultimately it just makes for more exciting racing for all fans around the world.
You're so right, and one of the benefits of swimming as a sport, as the way it is it's not weight bearing, it's not pressure loaded. Yes, your shoulders do the most work, and that is the main thing that swimmers really have to be careful and watch out for. But you know, you don't have to worry so much about like knees or ankles or like joint pain or anything like that. You just have to keep your shoulders good and robust to be able to cope with the load you're putting through it. But we are seeing development with this pack. It is definitely stringing out. I think, you know, you got Sasha Veli really punching it at the front, and I think this is what some of the swimmers will like. You know, finally it's someone's putting in the work, making it string out, drawing out that effort. And this is where you have to trust in your training and trust in your work, because you know it goes from being like a hard effort to suddenly a very hard effort, where you know, a slight gap might open up and you might be like, oh, I don't know if I actually have the ability to close that. And you'll be looking around hoping somebody else can make that jump for you.
Yeah, and I guess for spectators around the world that are tuning in, wondering why, like, still sitting 48 odd deep within 30 seconds of the lead of the race, why there's been such a dramatic shift is we've seen some of those really big names start to move forward in the race and push out some of the more developing federations or more developing athletes, and ultimately that just causes a new energy that comes into the race, and that energy is what Sasha Veli thrives off. He loves these moments and he loves drawing out a race. One of the questions I did have for you, as we can see now, Logan Fontaine taking the lead and really putting in some hard strokes. Logan Fontaine, as we mentioned in the preamble, is one of those athletes that he needs separation. He needs to win this race, and he needs to win it by a bit over Marc-Antoine Olivier. So he's not leaving anything on the line. And even if they are teammates, there's still 15,000 US dollars in between first and second for the overall title winner here in Golfo Aranci. But one of the questions I had for you, Alice, in line with that, the top 3 swimmers all being French, what is the hardest team, do you think, to make in the men's field?
I mean, yeah, okay. This is like a 3-sided dice, if that's a thing, with Germany, Italy, and France, in my opinion. I'm very happy if anyone wants to challenge me and add another nation to that. I'm sure Hungary as well, because basically all 4 of those countries have 2 athletes that. Oh, Australia. We'll just put it out Australia to me. Australia as well. So we've got 5 nations. Might as well let's find a 6th. Let's find a 6th and make it a full dice. Anyway, my point is, with all of those nations, you have at minimum 2 athletes that are very competitive. 2 athletes that at any given day, at any given point throughout the year, can reasonably be on the podium. Italy has more athletes beyond that. So I think even to break into like the top 5 in Italy is very challenging. But to be top 2 in Germany, you have to beat Florian Wellbrock or Ollie Clement. Okay, that's one thing. To be top 2 or top 3 in France, you have to beat Marc-Antoine Olivier, Fontaine, and Sachavelli. So I don't know. This is actually like a really, really difficult question, because I think it literally changes after each race. And my opinion on this always changes after each race. At the moment, I'm looking at it now and thinking, oh wow, if you want to make that French team for LA, I mean, you really have to be switched on in that qualification race, wherever that may be. So I don't know. What do you think? What do you think, Will?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I was having this conversation earlier today, funnily enough, about what's the hardest team to make. I think the hardest team to make is France. Like, considering there's only 2 spots. I mean, even looking at this year's world champs, like, neither Sachavelli nor Logan Fontaine had the opportunity to race the 10K. The 2 that represented France, of course, were Marc-Antoine Olivier and Jules Wallart. So you look at it as a whole, and I think, like, whilst the upper echelon of Germany is probably leading the way, and Italy equally so, France is just so fast. And I mean, it's no coincidence that the 2 leaders of the series, as it currently stands, Marc-Antoine Olivier and Logan Fontaine. To think that you can be sitting second on the overall series of this sport and not even be able to race the 10K at World Champs just blows my mind, the depth.
Yeah, you're so right. And I just want to add to that, Sachavelli is also sat in 5th place on the overall rankings for the series at the moment. So you are so right. The fact that you are sat second best in the world from the World Cups this year and weren't able to swim the 10, weren't able to swim that event at the World Championships because your qualification race was that competitive, just does speak volumes. And sorry, I know it's not about what we're not going leading up to World Championships, but just on the point of qualifications, it is really fun in open water swimming how different nations do take different approaches to qualifications. Some, like France, who kind of have the depth, are able to say, okay, this is our qualification race. That's how we're doing it. We're not taking results from World Cups, no matter how good they be. And I like that. I like that it works like that. But equally, some nations are like, okay, you've got 2 World Cup stops. You need to go to both of those, and we take the best results from those, and we put them together, and then we take the top 2 swimmers from that. That's also really good because it allows opportunity for, if you have a tough race, for it to, you've got another chance to hopefully improve and get a better score. So it's this. I think this was. Open water in every aspect of it has so much diversity of thought in terms of tactics, in terms of training, in terms of qualification. Even it really allows for good creativity that I don't think pool swimming has the opportunity to be allowed.
No, it's I guess that's why we've been able to see the sport really flourish at the highest level and every level underneath that as well. So many opportunities to compete, even if you're not competing at the very top of the sport. One other sort of storyline that we haven't necessarily touched on yet, Alice, is the junior ranking for 2025. So equally so, the men's ranking currently sitting at the front of the race. There is another race that's within this, and currently leading the way is Brazil through Leonardo Brant de Macedo. And, they're looking to take that title out for the second year in a row. Matthias Malechi took it out last year, and Brant de Macedo leads the way by 500 points as it currently stands. And ultimately, outside of a massive shock, Brazil should take out this junior title again through Leonardo. So, Alice, it's exceptional. We've talked about those federations on the rise, and really we've seen the dominance from Ana Marcela Cunha on the women's side, but the Brazilian youth men are on the rise.
Yes, definitely. And just want to shout out Okimoto of Brazil as well, bronze medalist back in 2016. So there's some real depth. There was some real depth, some real strength from Brazil in open water swimming. I've potentially seen it fade away ever so slightly. We of course have had Ana Marcela Cunha, who took home that win last year in the 2024 series winner. And I think it was the first time there was a trophy for it, and she was the first name to be put on the trophy, which I do think is really fitting. She's like the queen of the World Cups. Like, what's the stat? Like 86 medals or something. You've always got the number to my mouth, so please pick me up on it. But in terms of the Brazilian team and again the effort that they've put in, it's fantastic to see them potentially take home the junior title for a second year in a row on the men's side, or the boys' side, we should say. Very exciting. And it's also another great initiative from World Aquatics to keep encouraging the juniors to show up. Speaking from experience, I know how difficult it is as a junior to come to the senior stage and kind of not really get any recognition for the fact that you were like one of the better juniors or one of the best juniors in the race, and you're still finishing in like 20th position or something like that. So I think it's really nice to know, regardless of the position that you finish in, there's still something worth working towards and worth fighting for within the race.
That's it, and I guess that speaks to the different storylines that happen throughout the race, and often we get asked, what's the world record for 10K swimming, and there is no world record because every race is so different, but there's races within races, which is making so much drama, especially this year as we can see it develop time and time again. So just circling back, 81 medals, 81 international medals for Ana Marcela Cunha going down. It's a very hard conversation to say the GOAT between Ana Marcela Cunha and Sharon Van Rieldahl. But also wanting to shout out the leader of the women's junior rankings, who we'll see racing shortly, Luna Castavio from Finland, leading out Lisanne Sobral by 800 points. So ultimately, unless Castavio does not finish today's race, she should take out that world junior ranking for 2025, which, I mean, Finland on top isn't something that we've been saying very often in open water swimming.
No, and this is what's so fun about these opportunities. You might get a talent like Luna coming through and being like, oh, like she's doing really well. Let's take her to the World Cups. Let's give her opportunities. And then she goes in. She potentially comes away with World Junior lead, and it just really sets up a great narrative within her federation to be like, okay, let's keep investing in this athlete. Let's see where that can go. LA isn't that far away at this point. It's a great opportunity to get Finland qualified. I don't know if we've ever had a Finnish athlete in open water. That is a that'd be a good pub quiz question for any like open water aficionados. Have we ever had a Finnish athlete? I don't think so. I do apologise if I'm omitting someone from my memory. As far as I'm aware, I don't think we have. So that could be a really cool opportunity for Finland to break into that onto that stage. And then who knows after that, because she's still a junior at this point. She'd only be 22. 21, 22, 23 years old, somewhere in that range. Very young. So exciting opportunities for her. And it's just, again, really great that we are seeing that encouragement from World Aquatics to juniors to say, hey, keep going, keep trying. You never know where this could lead.
That's it. Everyone's journey has to start somewhere, and we're more than happy to have more swimmers joining our incredible sport and sharing just how exceptional these World Cups can be, but also the races that feed into that World Cup level. We have here our lead group coming down to complete lap 5. You can see the heat still sitting firmly at the front of the race. I believe still leading the way is Logan Fontaine, but as Alice called on lap 2, I think we're headed the way of a sprint finish. Sashavelli looms large as the athlete that can shake things up, and don't count out David Bethlehem as well. One thing that I did want to just circle back to for the final time before the women's race later today, I believe as it stands, this is the first year since 2009 where Ana Marcela Cunha might not take home a World Cup medal. So there's a lot on the line here for Ana Marcela Cunha and her GOAT status in the sport. But we'll unpack that later, Alice, as I'm sure there's a lot to talk through with Ana Marcela Cunha and the women's field.
Yeah, certainly. If you're thinking, oh, the men's are rounding out soon, don't worry. We'll have the women's coming up in an hour 20 time, depending on where you are in the world. I won't give a time because I'm not in the same time zone as where we are at the moment, but in about an hour and 20 minutes, we'll see the women take to the water, which is very exciting. But yeah, at the moment, as you said, Will, I think it is looking towards a sprint finish. I've always saying definitely within the women's race, lap 5 is the new lap 6 in terms of, where you see those mistakes happen, the pace picks up, everything's driving forward. But we've really just seen kind of a settled pace here. I think everybody's looking around, not wanting to show their moves at the moment, keeping their powder dry as much as possible, and just kind of toying with the front, not letting anything happen too much. I don't think Logan Fontaine really wants anyone to come past him, but he's equally not putting in a crazy amount of effort to make that break happen. So it'll be really interesting to see as they come around to this feeding arch. Does anyone take a feed? What does anyone take a feed? But also, who's going to try and make a move at this point?
Yeah, that's a good point. And actually, Alice, talk us through how Logan would be feeling at the moment. So, as we see there, unfortunately, Yu Li of Chinese Taipei pulling out of the race. Unfortunate. Hopefully, he gets his opportunity to race once again in the near future. But yeah, I guess Logan sitting at the front, not wanting anyone to move forward, but similarly not wanting to put in all the effort. Why would you be having that tactic? Why would you be, I guess, putting yourself in that position in the first place?
Yes, that's such a good point. Why do you lead? Why do you choose to lead when you know you're not going to really create that break and create that opportunity? And in those moments, it's all about knowing that you want to control the race as much as possible and not let anybody come past you. So, you're in front, you've got your eyes around you. Logan Fontaine is a very switched on racer. He's not just kind of swimming and going, oh, la-di-da, I can switch off, I can chill out here. You can see him looking around constantly, making sure he knows who's around him, who's coming up alongside him, what are his potential opportunities, and leading opens up opportunities for you. Yes, it's harder, yes, it's more difficult, but it means you can dictate the race and then take that and make what you want to happen with it as much as possible. But you also need to bear in mind, of course, potentially, I think it's David Bethlehem in front, but the point still stands for the same swimmers. It's the reason that you want to lead, and you just try and create those opportunities, but equally everybody else around you is also trying to take those opportunities from you and make their own race strategy happen.
Yeah, and I guess this is the situation that David Bethlehem really loves is to sit there and make the race happen around them. And I guess yeah, I mean, it's a good point that you make that these athletes, they certainly wouldn't be spending everything that they have, but they've just got an incredible aerobic base. These athletes are second to none really in their VO2, their ability to maintain pace at this incredible threshold level and then still kick it up into, ultimately what will be a sprint finish in 1,600 meters time. But it's starting to get absolutely mouth-watering here, Alice. We mentioned ultimately this is the world ranking to lose for Marc-Antoine Olivier, and it looks like he's made a big move here, as I think he Oh, it's hard to tell. I think that's actually Sasha Veli now that's taking the lead. We'll see in a second. If it is Veli, he is showing no signs of coming in for a feed. Sasha Veli leads away. Bethlehem Malechi still sitting in third. Incredible from the young Brazilian. At Serenza Philadelphia, Zhang of China moving into sixth now. Olivier Fontaine just sliding back a bit. He would not be happy with that. Guidi in there at ninth. Giovannoni back in 10th. A reminder, we keep our eyes here on the likes of Dario Varani, now in 12th position. So here it is, Hector Pardo with an opportunity, but usually when Varani goes forward, no one goes past him. Veli out in front, we see the shot of him here, did not take the feed. He's straight out onto this next lap. He knows the business is to be won in 1,600 meters time. And as you mentioned, Alice, he currently sits in 5th position. So he's wanting to move up these rankings. The easiest way to do that is to get on top of the podium. But one thing that I will shout out as well, Philadelphia sitting very far forward, 5th in fact. If he can get the win and we see Marc-Antoine Olivier finish outside that top 10, that could shake things up dramatically.
Yeah, this is a really, really exciting top 10. It's kind of, it's not what I expected. I didn't think Sasha Veli would be up front. I didn't quite expect him to lead like this, but it makes so much sense after seeing what happened in, oh dear, I'm gonna forget the location. I'm sorry, apologies, but a recent World Cup that we went to this year, and it was between Sasha Veli and Florian Walbrock, and Sasha put in a lot of hard work, and then Florian Walbrock just kind of came and punched through, and kind of things unraveled ever so slightly for Sasha Veli in those moments. But thank you, what was called out. It was Soma Bay. Thank you so much. Unraveled ever so slightly for Sasha Veli. It didn't turn out in exactly the way he wanted, but so it's fantastic to see him in this opportunity again, making that happen for him. And you know, it's really stacked. And as you said, I love how you always point out well about Varani being that line and that point, sat in about 12th position at the moment.
So as we go around that turn there, we'll see how things spice up. But Philadelphia looking like he's moved into 4th position behind Veli and sitting in 2nd there, Bethlehem. That is dangerous, Alice. This is not the way that Marc-Antoine would like the race to be sitting. There's a lot of speed, a lot of youth at the front of the race, and through that, a little bit of chaos is going to ensue.
Yes, definitely. You know, just picking into this now, Sasha Veli's really, really driving through, and I believe that is, oh yeah, David Bethlehem of Hungary. Always always shout this out. Thank you so much, David, for racing without your top half, because you're always very easy to pick out. Of course, with his stroke and the Hungarian hat, but just makes it that ever so slightly easier to know that's definitely him. Sat in there. Swimmer without the cap, I unfortunately cannot call who that is, but moving through, you have a lot of strength in this field, especially punching up the front here. And you know, everything's go, it's happening. Sasha Veli's really driving away. He's really doing a fantastic job. And Marc-Antoine Olivier, he is down but not out. I very much trust his ability to be able to go, I'm going to get back onto this and keep moving through and keep making it happen. He makes things happen for himself. He'll find that opportunity. He'll find those mistakes that that other competitors try to make and climb back in and make it happen. So, you know, Sasha Veli, stroke's looking good. He's looking strong. Like I said before, very minimal sighting from the athletes at the moment. It was kind of like that the whole way through the race, but the way the conditions are, and as you see things like calm down now, the wind's gone out of it a bit, the rain's obviously stopped. It's setting up for a fantastic finish for these athletes, and I think Sasha is pulling away a little bit here from the group. Sasha and David Bethlehem are pulling away a bit and creating a gap for themselves.
Yeah, as we said, Alice, there's just so much speed sitting between those two, and they're not afraid of committing to the race, and that has really resulted for David Bethlehem in the last couple of years, and we're seeing that sort of start to come to fruition for Sasha Veli. So very interesting, and just sitting in 3rd there is Andrea Philadelphia. As we mentioned, like, I mean, he is the most experienced of those top 3. He's the best finisher of those top 3, but there is a bit of a gap from 2nd to 3rd, and that, you know, half a meter could prove absolutely critical.
Oh, absolutely. You know, when those gaps open up, it's like, oh, okay, I really have to make sure things are okay, and I have to get everything sorted out. So, for Marc-Antoine at the moment, sat a bit further back. Sorry, it's just one of the main storylines for us because a lot kind of has to go wrong for him at the moment for him to lose the lead title. But as we always say with open water, I might have given him a caster's curse or a commentator's curse. Anything can happen at anything is possible. And you can see the size of the pack still. It's still about 15 men deep or so. And this is where, if Saakashvili or David Bethlehem let off even like an iota, even like a tiny bit, they'll get eaten up and taken back into the pack. And all of that amazing energy and all of that great effort they've put out will be for nothing.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't look like they're moving whatsoever. Like they're churning away at the front there, and it's going to be really interesting to see who charges through. Looks like that's Dario Varani's stroke that's starting to lift now in 4th position. Andrea Filadelli just behind him. He's lost his cap just to make our life a bit harder. But if this is Varani, he's putting in a sensational surge. He's getting up now onto the feet of Bethlehem, and that's what it takes sometimes, Alice, is those exceptional efforts from athletes to charge forward and get onto the feet just to make it happen.
Wow. Just wow. I'm just here like, you saw that happen in the space of, what, 10 seconds maybe? And he's brought the race back to the front. There's still probably about a kilometre, maybe 800 metres to go in the race, and you can see everybody's climbing back up now. David Bethlehem's just taken a look back and he's realised what's happening, and you know, Saakashvili's still putting in this really, really hard effort, but the moment Varani gets on the hip of David Bethlehem, that's David Bethlehem back into the rest of the pack, because a swimmer like him, he's quite lean. Getting someone on your hip like that, speaking from experience, is so annoying. It takes your water, it takes your opportunity, and you can see him being very smart, being switched on to what is happening and trying to, you know, not let that happen, find that space for himself. The pace is still really fast, so Varani's like up there but can't quite make that bridge to David Bethlehem's hip at the moment.
It's all happening though here, Alice. The final lap of the World Aquatics Open Water Swimming World Cup Series for the men. We're going to be crowning a world champion for this year in just over 10 minutes time. It's so exciting to see this race unfold as we go back to one of our back mark swimmers. It's truly heating up, and I think I just spotted Marc-Antoine Olivier moving through that lead pack as well. But currently on screen, one of those back marker swimmers. It's such a tough day once you get dropped from that lead group.
Absolutely. You know, shout out to all of the swimmers competing today. You know, we of course we're always talking about the ones at the front and how things are going at the front. But again, speaking from experience, I've been one of those swimmers. It's hard. You know, sometimes finishing the race is your achievement for the day, let alone like top 10, podium, etc. So yeah, as always, shout out to all of the swimmers for bringing their depth and their quality to our World Cups. It makes for fantastic viewing for us.
Now back with the lead group and still leading the way, Saakashvili. The only chink in his armor here, I'd say, Alice, is he doesn't necessarily have the next gear. Like, this is Saakashvili currently swimming at his absolute max, and he's just left the door open. It's enough, as we've said, it's enough to win gold at that junior level, but there's so many athletes that have just packed into this lead group, as I think that's Varani currently sitting in third, equal alongside him, Marc-Antoine Olivier. So, oh no, that's an Italian cap, in fact, sitting in fourth position. Hector Pardo back there in the yellow hat. So I can't pick up where Marc-Antoine Olivier is. Logan Fontaine sitting at about fifth.
Sorry, yeah, Marc is next to Logan Fontaine, I believe. I think that's Marc. And now he's next to Hector. So yeah, he's still up there. Still up there.
The black French hat, we very rarely see that one in action, but as always, Alice, they like to keep us on our toes.
Yeah, this is the thing. I'm like, guys, do us a favor, help us out a little bit with the caps. But you see Sasha Veli at the moment. It kind of an interesting lines went round the front there. Ended up getting a little separation, but I don't think it's going to work to his advantage here because David Bethlehem is clawing his way onto his hip, and these two swimmers are being very respectful of each other. Actually, they're allowing their water, and I say that just as David Bethlehem starts to pull over. But look at the line behind them. Look at the battle for bronze as it stands at the moment. It's really tough. And this is where Marc-Antoine is in a little bit of danger, actually. He's sat right in the middle next to the yellow hat of Hector Pardo. If you go just below him is Marc-Antoine Olivier in the French cap. But he's trying to make this happen for himself. There's a gap that's opened up now. He's trying to find the outside line. But back at the front of the race, he's still got Sasha Veli charging. Dario Varani is now, do we think it's Varani? Are we calling that as Varani?
Honestly, Alice, we talked about how we don't necessarily love maths, and trying to do the live maths of the point scores and also guess which athlete is which is absolutely chaos at the moment. But you are so right. There's a USA cap in there, in fact. So where Marc-Antoine Olivier sits, dangerous turn there for Logan Fontaine. You do not want to go under that turn can. I think that's actually Bailey Armstrong charging forward for Australia as well. So, as we said, if Marc-Antoine Olivier just finishes in the top 6, he wins the series. But as you can see, that's not necessarily a guarantee right now.
Yeah, wow. There is so much happening here. You can see Marc-Antoine really working to make things happen. And it is Dario Varani who's chasing on the feet of Sasha Veli currently. You've got a line above them, which is David Bethlehem and Logan Fontaine. Wow. This is so exciting. Like, there is so much happening here. And I think you are right about the yellow hat being Bailey Armstrong. So apologies for that. But wow. Oh my gosh. Well, what are your predictions for this? Because I predicted a sprint finish, but it's not unfolding in the way that I quite expected. There's a lot of toing and froing in the sense of in 4, 5, and 6. It's so unpredictable what's happening back there, but it seems like at the front, Sasha Veli is really holding strong. And I think that chaos behind is playing well into his hands at the moment.
Yeah, there's a lot on the line here for Sasha Veli. Ultimately get to win a World Cup stop, same as David Bethlehem, who sits on the top of the screen. Sasha Veli is actually, it's a very far chance, but he is a chance to take out the overall title if things fall his way. He's currently sitting in 5th, as we've mentioned a couple of times. One of the things that I did want to ask Alice is, I honestly can't give you a prediction. This is utter chaos at the front when we think that there's $50,000 on the line for Marc-Antoine Olivier, who's just falling out of that top 8 now. When you think about it like this, Dario Varani didn't take a break. He didn't go to World Champs. He trained all the way through, and here he is with a chance to take home the gold and potentially the title. I wonder how much that has to play for the athletes.
Oh gosh, yeah. This is where you don't regret anything. You can't change anything now. Lock in, get your head down and make it happen. I think we do see I'm torn between which the yellow hats are, like Bailey Armstrong and Hector Pardo, but both of them are on screen at the moment. So we've got both of the Australian and the British athlete in there. But this is where, if you've taken a break and you might be thinking, oh, wow, I wish I didn't take that break because, there's money on the line, etc. Don't be thinking about that. Lock in, focus on the race. You can have your regrets afterwards because this is so high pressured at the moment. And there's so much at play. There's so many different stakes happening for each of the athletes. And Sasha, I think, this is hard to tell. David Bethlehem's really pulling up alongside Sasha in terms of like on the same line as him at the moment. And I think he's moved in front, hasn't he?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this is the worst thing to happen for the field is to let David Bethlehem get his own space with 500 meters to swim. You channel the likes of Leonie Beck back in 2023. If she's able to get her own space, she's absolutely unbeatable. The thing is that David will have to cut across, and we saw the impact that had on Krzysztof Rosowski on lap 2. It's not a faster line that he sits on, and even so, on this lap, they have to swim further across the field to get there. Interesting to note, as you said, Alice, that yellow cap on the left of the screen now is Hector Pardo. And I know that because Bailey Armstrong, a very impressive moustache, he sits on the right of the screen and he sits next to Marc-Antoine Olivier. That is absolute kryptonite for Marc-Antoine Olivier. Bailey Armstrong, an exceptional surf swimmer. He's exceptional at managing packs. And you talk about, I guess, the concrete block that can be sat on the swimmer's hips. You can see Marc-Antoine Olivier just on the bottom right of your screen there. He's just trying to battle almost like a pinball in that pack, trying to get free in own water. But, you know, this is dangerous positioning here for Marc-Antoine Olivier. Ultimately, he does not want Dario Varani near the front because that is the danger. Andrea Filidelli as well, Logan Fontaine, and even Sashavelli, if he can get on top and Marc-Antoine Olivier is not on the podium, not in the top 10, that will give him the win as well. So there's so much happening in this race, and equally so, Alice, we're yet to see David Bethlehem take a gold medal, an individual gold medal at the World Cup Series, and currently he leads the way.
Wow, just looking at that screen where you've got 3 different lines of swimmers, and this is all going to converge very soon as they come into this finish funnel. You know, that finish funnel might look quite wide on the screen at the moment, but trust me, it is not, and it will narrow out, and you're going to have basically like a 3-headed race of Bethlehem, Veli, and I think potentially Varani or Filidelli at the front, leading in that Italian cap on the far right of the screen. There's so much at play here, like... Well, this is insane. This is like kind of a repeat of Ibiza, but more civilized. There's more respect happening. But David Bethlehem really has his own space here, and I think it's going to be tough to come past him at this point. Even still, with the fact he has to cut over, he does have like a clear body length in front of Sasha once he does.
Oh, this is utter chaos, and we wouldn't have it any other way. You can see there the battle between the 2 Italians. They are currently almost battling for 5th position, which definitely opens the door back up for Marc-Antoine Olivier. As you mentioned, Alice, this is David Bethlehem on display. Logan Fontaine sitting in behind him, Alice. So that also is one thing to keep in mind as we look back further through the field. Marc-Antoine Olivier nowhere to be seen, but you know, you've got 2 storylines here. The potential world title going the way of Fontaine if he can hold on. They're now cutting back across in these beautiful Mediterranean waters, but David Bethlehem on the precipice of his first individual World Cup win.
Yeah, and I think I just counted quickly that there's a potential for Marc-Antoine to finish in 13th place, but he's quite lucky here that this kind of pack is like forming up again similar to Ibiza, where it's going to be just white water, and that is where Marc-Antoine loves that playground. He loves being able to get in and get over people. But back to the leader, back to David Bethlehem. What an incredible straight he's been able to take here, and you know, taking us into the finish. Logan Fontaine sat on his feet. I think this is setting up Logan Fontaine to potentially take the overall World Cup win, which is incredible from him. So really, really exciting racing.
This is absolute chaos. We've seen it all year. The athletes have delivered the unthinkable, and we're seeing it once more. A precipice-breaking World Cup win here for David Bethlehem of Hungary. He's out in front, and he's storming down the finish line. The World Cup title will go the way of Hungary in what has been an exceptional finish. He's under the touchpad now and stops the clock in a dominant performance. Second goes the way there. It looks Logan Fontaine. We keep eyes across the field. An incredible finish effort from Marc-Antoine Olivier. So there it is, Bethlehem, Fontaine, Varani in third. We keep eyes on the line. Remember, Olivier, 6 or better, gets the world title. And we keep eyes on this time now. We've got the podium. Bethlehem with his first title. An exceptional result for the young Hungarian. He wins here in Golfo Aranci for the first time. He has had an exceptional year in 2025. Pure world-class racing from the young Hungarian. But Alice, we are waiting with bated breath here. Logan Fontaine in second, Dario Varani in third. Remember, Olivier, 6 or better, he wins. He wins. If he's 7th, it's a tie. If he's 8th, Fontaine could claim the title on the very last race, on the very last straight. That is what is on the line here.
Yeah, wow. I'm just sat here like basically holding my breath. I'm like, oh, when are we going to get to see it? When do we get to get the, of course, I think it was basically a photo finish. So we just really want to check that before anything's announced, you know, we've had it in positions before where things have been announced and potentially not the right result. So great that everything's being made to be above board. But what a fantastic finish from David Bethlehem. I just want to go to that real quick. I love I love the kind of bragging rights he had when he like paused before he touched the pad, turning around, checking that he had that clear water. He did have clear water. That was a very dominant and a big statement win, and his first World Cup win, which I think there's going to be many more to come, Will.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it, you know, come time and time again. David Bethlehem, he's been thereabouts. He's led races. He's tried hard. He's pushed paces. He's tried different tactics. He's had, you know, the best training squad arguably in the world. And here he is, the first individual World Cup title going the way of David Bethlehem. And, you know, Hungary, it's been a long time coming to have a swimmer that sits on top of podiums like Krzysztof Rosowski, and they've uncovered it here.
Yes, definitely. Continuing that strength that that Hungary puts out in open water swimming. We saw it with Eva Ristov a number of years back now. It's amazing how quickly time goes with the 2012 Olympics, I believe. She's definitely an Olympic medalist. I apologize, I cannot definitely recall which Olympics it was, but Hungary putting out year after year some fantastic open water athletes, creating a real strong community and sense of it. We see Bettina Fabian in that mix with the Hungarians as well, with some great swims that she had in Singapore just gone. So we're looking forward to seeing her racing shortly. But yeah, just fantastic. I'm just really excited to see the rest of the results. I know it was like a photo finish, so we need to make sure everything's okay. But great after shots of these athletes here, speaking to their coaches, giving them information, giving that initial feedback. And to be honest, it's one of those things where you need to speak or have this written down as quickly as possible, because there'll be things that happen in the race, and you're of course trying to recall an hour and 50 minutes of swimming. There's a lot that happens in there. You kind of have to make mental notes of that worked well, that didn't, and feed that back to your staff as quickly as possible.
It is just so much going on here, Alice. The world title on the line. Obviously, we wait with bated breath here for Marc-Antoine Olivier's finish. We know Logan Fontaine across the line in second. That puts him up to 2,350 points. Marc-Antoine Olivier entered today, 1,950 points. Dario Varani actually leapfrogging Marc-Antoine Olivier with that third position there, now in 2,050 points. So there could potentially be Marc-Antoine Olivier sliding all the way from first to third or below, because Philadelphia was in the mix on that finish as well. We said it all year. The one thing that's been consistent is the inconsistency. And if you'd asked me what was going to happen before this race, I would not have predicted this. And I guess, you know, that's why we've been saying all year, Alice, tell a friend to get involved and to tune in to the action that occurs here in open water swimming, because it truly anything can happen on race day.
Yeah, I feel really bad. I feel like I might have commentator cursed Marc-Antoine Olivier. No, of course not. It's just open water swimming. It's tough, it's brutal, it's relentless. The race was quite back and forth and quite unpredictable in its nature as it unfolded anyway. And then, you know, when it just comes down to that final, like, clinching moments, it was tough. It was like very heavy. It was a very dense pack across the line, and making things happen from that, even for the best of swimmers in the world like Marc-Antoine Olivier, is challenging, and that is what it highlights. And I think that just highlights how well he has done throughout the year, to be so consistent, to be so dominant in getting on those podiums. And potentially today it hasn't been his day, but that's okay. That's open water swimming. We had a fantastic showing from Sasha Veli, from David Bethlehem getting his first win, and we have so many athletes to look to every time that we get in the water to say who's going to bring us the action today, and it has definitely been brought.
And I guess, Alice, I mean, we've been talking about the depth throughout the entire year, both at the World Cup stops, off air, and of course at the World Championships. But ultimately, those results show. Oh, here we go. Olivier in 14th, 13 seconds off the lead. That means Logan Fontaine is the 2025 World Aquatics Open Water World Cup overall champion. A truly sensational finish here in Golfo Aranci.
Yeah, wow. Wow. I don't know the maths. I don't know. We'll wait until we get the official results from World Aquatics in terms of the placements. This is very unexpected. Very unexpected. Shout out to Marc-Antoine Olivier. I've shouted him out a lot, but really shout out to him. He's put down a fantastic effort this year. Wasn't quite his day, but still finishing in 14th place at a World Cup. Really, really amazing results. So seeing some of the results there, Sasha Veli, I think is going to climb up the rankings quite high as well. He's potentially looking at a third or fourth place finish. Just doing my quick maths as I can on what I've got written down. So these standings have just been blown out of the water from what we expected going into today. And what is this setting up for the women's race? Because the standings in the women's race are even more volatile. I really thought the men's race was like low-key set in stone, but the women's race is honestly so volatile. I'm really looking forward to getting into that with you, Will.
Yeah, you're so right, Alice. It's a great day for racing as once again we look at the standings and we see the top 23 there. But just confirming for all the spectators around the world that we'll be doing both medal presentations for the men's and the women's race at the conclusion of the women's race, and we'll also be presenting the overall series winners for both the juniors and men and women, as well as our sprint winners for today. But oh, what a race it was in the men's to see, Marc-Antoine Olivier, Mr. Consistent himself, finish in 14th position, really just makes it so interesting for that overall point title. And I was saying before, we've spoken all year about just the depth that the sport is bringing on the men's side, but equally so on the women's. And no more pain to be caused from the depth of this sport than what Marc-Antoine Olivier must be dealing with at the moment. As we said, the difference from first to second here, ultimately $15,000. So it's a bitter pill to swallow, Alice, but ultimately, that's why we race, because nothing is certain.
Yeah, gosh, it's challenging, right? Because if Marc-Antoine Olivier, for example, had a not so great race at one of the other competitions, he wouldn't be in this position. I think this is what is so brutal about it, is he's done so well all year and set himself up in a fantastic position. And today wasn't his day for whatever reason that may be. And it feels like he has lost this money, but it was never given to him in the first place, if that makes sense. So I know that's much like I'm not in that position, so it's much easier to say from the outside, but it it's really, really challenging. It's really difficult. He should be still very proud, hold his head high. He's had a great season, an absolutely fantastic season. Still taking home a lot of prize money, but just in those moments, showcasing the depth of the field and the quality that we're dealing with.
That's it. I mean, it's brutal. But also, credit to Logan Fontaine this year as well. The 4 races, he was 4th in Setable. He was 7th in Ibiza, and in of course Summer Bay he was 2nd. So to be on the podium twice and to be thereabouts in the other 2 races, equally so, as we mentioned, French open water swimming is in a very healthy place, and should Logan Fontaine be crowned the overall title winner this year, he's done it in a deserving factor.
Yes, you're so right. And what's fantastic about that is it's the World Cups, of course, reward showing up, but they reward a consistency at a certain level. So, 7th being his lowest position, incredible. To get in, to take that win, and take home $50,000. Wow, wow, what a day's work. And then you know, we have the other races for them to come tomorrow with the relay and the 3K knockout. So, you know, you might be down, but you're never out in open water. There's always another opportunity to get in and show up.
That's it, Alice. And I guess, you know, we're seeing some of those athletes show up now across the finish line as well. As we've talked about, races within races here, the fourth and final stop here at Golfo Aranci. It's been a testing day so far for the men. They battled through some hectic conditions earlier, and ultimately the sprint finish that went the way of Logan Fontaine. And here he is, the 2025 World Aquatics Open Water World Cup champion now. Logan Fontaine, an exceptional athlete, an exceptional year, and I'm sure we'll see more from him shortly. But for now, thanks for joining us for Stop 4 of the World Aquatics Open Water Swimming World Cup series here in Golfo Aranci. That was the men's 10 kilometers. We've still got all the action to come in the women's 10 kilometers in just under 50 minutes time. So please do bear with us, and we look forward to you joining our company very shortly as we cover the final 10K for 2025.
Just 0.01, that's the unofficial time at the moment, 18:25.1. Hungary's Bethlehem looks to have secured the sprint money. That's $1,000 going his way. That's the unconfirmed result. Hope I get the chance to travel the world, but I don't have any plans. 6 di distacco e poi a chiudere la top 3 Logan Fontaine. On the horizon, maybe sunshine, but certainly on the horizon will be a winner. Ed eccoci con altri aggiornamenti. Seguito dall'altro atleta francese Logan Fontaine, sale l'atleta brasiliano Meleki in terza posizione. Al comando attuale l'atleta francese Golfo Fontaine. Vediamo in questo momento passare all'interno del portale intermedio, si va a chiudere quindi il quinto. Trying to chase down Marc-Antoine Olivier of France, who led the way on 1,900. Siamo alle ultime bracciate con l'ungherese David Bethlehem che si prende il comando veramente vicino al pannello. Facciamo partire l'applauso perché siamo in chiusura della 10 km maschile con David Bethlehem, Ungheria. La 10 km maschile in questa ultima tappa del Tour 2025. Don't forget, we've still got swimmers coming in the backfield, so of course, well done to David Bethlehem for taking victory here in our 10-kilometer race. Logan Fontaine with a wonderful performance that puts him towards the top of the overall leaderboard as well. It was Dario Verani who came in third, so it's an Italian medal here on the banks of Sardinia, which will be greeted later on with a huge cheer, I am sure. But yet you can see still coming in some of those swimmers, some of the youngsters taking part here as well into the final few meters of their swim at the last event of the World Cup season.
Esatto, stiamo vedendo tutti gli atleti che rientrano e si chiude quindi la 10 km. Rinnovo anch'io i complimenti a David Bethlehem che si aggiudica questa 10 km nell'ultima tappa, la tappa numero 4 della World Cup World Aquatics Open Water Swimming. Il podio che per adesso vede Logan Fontaine, poi l'azzurro Dario Verani, e seguiamo chiaramente la convalida da parte dello staff di giuria